Dear chosen one, the ones who laughed at you weren't laughing because they were sure of themselves. They were laughing because deep down, they were afraid you'd figure it out. And now that you have, they can't look away. You used to be the one in the corner, quiet, overlooked, underestimated. They thought you were soft. They assumed you were slow. They never imagined you were simply watching, absorbing, learning every move. You played the fool so convincingly. They started to believe their own illusion. But now you walk like someone who knows too much, and it's shaking them. You carry clarity now. You move with purpose. And what terrifies them most is that you're not asking questions anymore. You already know. Science will tell you that when a human brain endures trauma, silence, and observation, it doesn't break, it rewires. And that's what happened to you. Your nervous system didn't shut down, it recalibrated. Your awareness didn't retreat, it expanded. The pain sharpened your perception. The solitude heightened your senses. And now, chosen one, you don't just walk into rooms, you shift the atmosphere. They feel it, even if they can't name it. You are a truth frequency that bends every lie without needing to speak. Before we go deeper, let me pause and say this. Thank you, truly, to every one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. I see you. I feel your energy. I honor your gift. Your contribution helps keep this truth flowing and spreading to more souls who need it. But whether you donate or not, please know this: your presence here is already enough. Your growth, your listening, your healing, that is the real currency. And I'm grateful for it. If this message resonates with your spirit, drop a comment below with 777. Let heaven know you received the confirmation. Now let's talk about why they're shook. Why your silence has become louder than their drama. Why people who used to control the narrative suddenly don't know what to say around you. You used to over-explain, didn't you? You used to defend your intuition, second-guess your knowing, water yourself down just to stay palatable. But something shifted. You didn't fight them, you freed yourself. You got quiet. You got clear. You got aligned. And that was all it took. You didn't just figure them out, you figured yourself out. And now, their illusion has no grip on your reality. You're not seeking attention anymore. You're commanding respect without ever raising your voice. You're not reacting, you're revealing. And that's what has them spiraling. Because imitation has no vibration. Copying your glow doesn't give them your frequency. You didn't get here by being liked. You got here by being real. And now that you've returned to the truth of who you've always been, you've become untouchable in the most divine way. Let's go deeper, because if you're still here, it's not by accident. It's by design. Something in your spirit already knows you are the plot twist they never saw coming. God's chosen ones. They whisper your name in fear you figured it out too fast. Number 1. They thought you were clueless. Now you're the blueprint they're secretly copying. Chosen one. Do you realize the same people who used to call you clueless now quietly copy everything you do? Isn't it wild how the ones who mocked your confusion now mimic your clarity like it's their survival guide? They once rolled their eyes at your vision. Now they track your every post like it's gospel. But here's the twist. You were never lost. You were just in divine disguise. Hirnverrefinement, not rejection. They wanted you to stay small, to stay questioning, to stay easy to manipulate. But God had other plans. Have you noticed how the room shifts when you walk in now? That glow, it's not arrogance. It's earned. It's layered with betrayal. Weeping nights. Cil and prière. And that deep voice of God saying, keep going, even if no one claps. What they called luck was really divine engineering. Your clarity didn't arrive through comfort. It was baptized in the fire of lies, isolation, abandonment, and spiritual warfare. Remember when they said, "You're too sensitive"? That was never a weakness. It was code for, "You perceive more than I want you to." When they accused you of overthinking, it wasn't an insult, it was fear. Because people who swim in shallow waters fear those who dive deep. They couldn't manipulate you because you felt too much, saw too much, knew too much. Your discernment was inconvenient to their deception. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Proverbs 2:6. Let me ask you, how many times did you doubt yourself because they said you were too much? And yet, here you are, a whole, alive, glowing. They tried to ghost you, and instead, you became the light. You didn't just rise, you rose without clapping back. That's what terrifies them. Oprah Winfrey was once told she wasn't fit for television, too emotional, too rough. Yet, she became the standard. Chadwick Boseman silently battled cancer while portraying kings. That's you, operating in divine strength, while they misread your silence as weakness. Harriet Tubman led enslaved people to freedom, not through noise, but clarity. And Frida Kahlo, despite her pain, became art. Nelson Mandela was labeled a criminal until his strength broke nations free, just like them. Your quiet power is rewriting history. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. Isaiah 41:10. They never expected you to emerge like this. They thought if they ignored you long enough, you'd vanish. But you didn't fade. You evolved quietly, precisely, ruthlessly, and now they whisper your name, not in gossip, but in reverence. They ask, how did they do it? The answer, you figured it out. You stopped needing validation from people who barely loved themselves. You stopped showing up where you weren't respected. You stopped explaining your value. You stopped watering dead gardens. Let me ask you, how many rooms have you outgrown but still tried to fit in? How many people drained you while smiling in your face? And now, they resent your peace because it reflects their chaos. But you wear calm like armor. You walk with knowing. That's not ego. That's survival. Nay, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. Romans 8:37. Your transformation wasn't inspired by a motivational speech. It was born from breaking, then building yourself brick by brick. You resurrected your confidence, your worth, your discernment. That glow is not store-bought. It's heaven-forged. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. Psalm 23:5. You're not just glowing, you're glowing in their presence. And that's what haunts them, because deep down they know they played a role in creating this version of you, but they'll never say it. Instead, they copy, stalk, and analyze. But you've already moved on. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. 2 Corinthians 4:17. Let them whisper, let them mimic. You are no longer the person they could control. You are the blueprint, the original, the chosen. And now that you know who you are, there's no unknowing. Number 2. Everything's hitting at once because you were born to break the pattern, not blend into it. Chosen one. Let's get one thing straight. You were never here to fit in. You were here to disrupt, to shift, to awaken generations. So when everything hit you all at once, was it chaos, or was it the final shattering of old limitations that could no longer house your calling? Do you feel like things are accelerating, doors opening, people shifting, emotions rising, revelations flowing? It's not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. God is aligning your life with purpose in real time. You weren't collapsing, you were being carved. And every blow that tried to break you only revealed more of your indestructibility. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1:5. Have you ever wondered why you couldn't stay stuck in mediocrity like others? Why average settings suffocate you? Because you carry the pattern-breaking blueprint. What broke others only built you. They thought you'd tap out, but you tapped in. To power, to purpose, to alignment. Look at Maya Angelou, abused and silenced as a child. She later roared with poems that healed generations. Think of Steve Jobs, fired from his own company, only to return and revolutionize the world. Or Malala Yousafzai, shot for speaking truth only to become a global voice. Even Michael Jordan was once cut from his high school basketball team, but rejection revealed his reign. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Romans 5:3. So now, why is your energy different? Because you've shed the weight of pretending. You stopped performing for approval. You cut off emotional vampires and aligned with divine flow. That peace you feel, that glow you radiate, it's the fruit of spiritual obedience. Let me ask, did you notice how your presence now provokes silence? How rooms feel tense when you speak truth? That's not awkwardness, it's conviction. Your frequency now exposes lies effortlessly, not because you try, but because you exist. Some are drawn to it, others are burned by it. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. Ecclesiastes 3:1. When everything seems to collide, recognition, attraction, pressure, it's not punishment, it's preparation. You were never building for now. You were being refined for what's next. The delays, the betrayals, the confusion, heaven's training program. And now you're in launch mode. Have you asked yourself why they're suddenly interested? Why people who ignored you are now circling back? Why doors once sealed are now flying open? Because you're no longer out of sync with God's timing. You're aligned. And alignment makes noise in the spirit realm. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten it in his time. Isaiah 60:22. You weren't meant to blend into broken systems. You were born to break them. And now everyone's watching the same storm that was supposed to destroy you become your divine spotlight. With your help, I can advance against a troop. With my God, I can scale a wall. Psalm 18:29. So let them study. Let them whisper. Let them screenshot. You're not overwhelmed. You're overtaking. You're not sinking. You're shifting. And every breath you take in your authenticity is a blow to the illusion they wanted you to live in. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43:19. Let me leave you with this. You are not under attack. You are under construction. You are not lost. You are being launched. And those who laughed at your process, they're about to witness your presentation. Because what's next isn't just your moment, it's your mandate. And heaven is already clapping. Number 3. They tried to play you small now. You see through the illusion like a hawk. Chosen one. Can you remember the exact moment the spell broke? The moment your spirit finally said, "No more"? That split-second realization when you stopped doubting your value and started dismantling every lie they used to keep you stuck. It didn't come with loud thunder or dramatic lightning. It arrived quietly, like a whisper from heaven. And yet, it split your life into 2 timelines, before clarity and after authority. You didn't just wake up, you rose. The moment you recognized your divine worth, the game ended for every person who fed off your confusion, manipulated your loyalty, or gaslighted your intuition. That was the moment they lost control. And now you see everything, not like a wounded human trying to survive, but like a hawk soaring above the illusion, reading patterns, tracking energy, sensing the truth behind every smile. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. So let me ask you, chosen one, how did you survive so long beneath your potential? Why did you shrink for so long to fit into places you were meant to outgrow? The answer is simple, but chilling. They trained you. Life, culture, broken families, wounded friends, false leaders. They taught you to doubt your own brilliance, because your confusion protected their illusion. But one day, something clicked. Maybe it was the moment they ignored your cries one too many times. Maybe it was when you stared at your reflection and finally saw yourself without distortion. Maybe it was after one more betrayal that finally broke the spell. But however it happened, that moment shattered the cage they built around you. Viola Davis once said she spent years dimming her light to be palatable in Hollywood until she stopped apologizing and won an Oscar. Jim Carrey, often perceived as just a comedian, revealed a depth of spiritual wisdom that silenced critics. Simone Biles chose mental health over medals and redefined what strength really looks like. Bo Burnham broke out of the noise by being brutally honest with his inner world. Even Lady Gaga, mocked for her uniqueness, turned what made her too much into a global anthem. You've done the same. You used to treat life like a never-ending uphill battle. Now you glide, not because the mountain changed, but because your eyes did. You see differently now. You don't chase approval, you discern intention. You don't fear abandonment, you understand divine redirection. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. Matthew 6:22. Imagine wearing fogged glasses for years. You accepted the blur. You thought everyone saw the world that way. But then you wiped the lens. Clarity replaced confusion. And suddenly, every fake smile, manipulative compliment, guilt trip, and spiritual scam became visible in high definition. Let me ask you this. How many times did you call dysfunction normal just to keep the peace? How many times did you twist yourself into someone they could tolerate just to be tolerated? But now that you've seen the truth, you can't unsee it. You no longer mistake trauma bonds for love. You no longer confuse EKs for passion. You no longer let silence mean peace if it's partnered with suppression. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. This isn't just about seeing others, it's about seeing you. You now recognize that your goals were once rooted in survival, not destiny. You were building success that would make others comfortable, not building legacy that reflects your divine essence. Now, you don't shrink. You don't explain your intuition. You don't offer discounts on your presence. Because here's the truth, they never wanted you to discover. You were never the underdog. You were just in the wrong arena. You were trying to thrive in environments that needed you confused, small, apologetis, and powerless. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. He seats them with princes. Psalm 113, Sheba, Shmona. And now that you're sharp, they can't blunt you again. They can't use flattery to rope you in. They can't guilt you into staying silent. They can't convince you to beg for crumbs when you're carrying the recipe for kingdom abundance. They can't unsee what you've become, and they know deep down they helped forge it, not through love, but through the fire they lit trying to destroy you. That's the twist. What they sent to destroy you became the heat that sharpened your clarity. What you meant for evil, God used for good. Genesis 50:20. Let them wrestle with that. Because while they were plotting your delay, you were mastering your discernment. And now, you're not just free, you're fluent in truth. You don't react to betrayal anymore. You discern it. You don't beg for closure. You become it. Number 4. You became the flame. Now they can't stop circling like moths. Chosen one. You didn't chase the spotlight. You became the fire. And now, they can't stop orbiting around your light. The attention you're receiving isn't because you asked for it. It's because you activated your frequency. You remembered who you are. And when a chosen soul remembers, everything around them shifts. Atmospheres bend. People react. Energy responds. Let me ask you something. Did you notice how people started treating you differently the moment you stopped apologizing for your glow? Before you even speak, the air shifts. You walk in and they feel you. Not your perfume. Not your style. Your spiritual weight. That's not confidence. That's alignment. That's resonance. Your soul has finally returned to its original signal. And now it cuts through pretense like a blade through fog. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Isaiah 60:1. This isn't charisma, it's vibration. It's what happens when wounds become wisdom and pain becomes purpose. You stopped leaking energy trying to be liked. You stopped seeking applause from the audience you outgrew, and when you did, that's when everything flipped. Beyoncé doesn't beg to be admired. She commands a room by knowing who she is. Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't magnetic because he tried to please everyone, but because truth carries frequency. Rihanna became a billionaire by unapologetically evolving. Keanu Reeves is admired not for performance, but presence. And Princess Diana, she was light in a system built to hide it. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:4. Now, they laugh louder at your jokes. They lean in closer. They mimic your phrasing, your mannerisms, your silence. But this isn't about flattery. It's about the shift in vibration. You became the reason the room feels different, and they know it. They may not say it, but they feel it. And here's the secret. You didn't do this to be liked. You did this to survive, to heal, to rise. Let me ask, have you noticed how your healed presence triggers some and heals others? That's because your frequency speaks louder than your words. Your energy is no longer a question mark. It's a declaration. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Matthew 5:6. You didn't build magnetism through manipulation. You built it through authenticity. Real recognizes real. and real is rare. That's why they're obsessed. That's why they watch. That's why they can't look away, even if they don't like what they see. Because what they feel in your presence is truth, and truth stings. Some are genuinely inspired by you. Others are confused. Some are obsessed, but don't even know why. But none of that affects your assignment. Because this chapter, it's not about how they view you, it's about how you finally view yourself. You're no longer seeking the mirror. They're now using you as one. Do not cast your pearls before swine. Matthew Sheba, Ashesh. And you've learned, not everyone deserves access. Not every compliment is a connection. Not every invitation is an opportunity. You became selective, not because you're arrogant, but because you're aware. Abu Valels, guard your heart. For everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. So let them circle. Let them talk. Let them stare. You're not the flame for their comfort. You are the fire that awakens, reveals, and burns away everything fake. They don't know what to do with someone who no longer needs to be seen because you are the seen. And trust me, they hear it. Chosen one, even when you don't say a word, your presence roars. I'm back. I'm whole, and I'm not hiding. Number 5. Some clap because they love you. Others clap just to get close enough to steal. Chosen one. Do you feel the shift? Not just in who claps for you, but how they clap. Some hands ring with genuine joy. Others echo with jealousy disguised as support. Welcome to the elevation you prayed for, where your glow isn't just admired. It's studied. Not all applause is admiration. Sometimes it's camouflage. You're not paranoid. You're perceptive. And that perception is your protection. They don't all love you. Some just want to learn your rhythm. Memorize your strategy. Decode your divine blueprint. Why? Because you made it out of the pit they were comfortable watching you rot in. Now, they don't want to celebrate you. They want to replicate you. But without the blood, sweat, or the battle scars you bled to get here. Be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. Matthew, Esther, Sheshasara. Let me ask you, can you feel it? That subtle shift in energy when certain people compliment you a little too much, when they start using your words, dressing like your glow-up, adopting your tone, but never giving you credit. That's not respect. That's a scouting mission in disguise. Think of Kobe Bryant. He was praised by many, but most only studied him to steal moves, not understand his mindset. Think of Nipsey Hussle, who preached ownership long before it was cool. Many copied his marketing. A few carried his mission. Or Dr. Maya Angelou quoted endlessly. But how many truly lived her wisdom? Robin Williams made the world laugh. Yet few saw the pain behind the genius. Even Jesus had Judas sitting at the same table clapping until it was time to kiss betrayal on the cheek. Even my close friend, someone I trusted, one who shared my bread, has turned against me. Psalm 40:1. And here you are now. Your life is a testimony, your journey, a blueprint, your presence, a classroom. And not everyone in the room came to learn with pure intent. Some want your formula, not your friendship. They want to steal your fruit, but bypass your roots. Here's a cold truth. Chosen one, they envy your light because it exposes their shadows. You remind them of the discipline they lack, the healing they've avoided, and the truth they've buried, so they mimic what they can see, not realizing it's your unseen suffering that gave birth to your glow. Nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known. Luke 8:17. So how do you discern the difference between real and fake? Supporters lift your spirit whether or not it benefits them. They intercede for your peace in private. They cheer for your calling, even when it overshadows theirs. But studiers, they lurk. They echo your voice. Then edit your soul out of it. They use flattery as strategy. They want your oil but not your olive press. Ask yourself this: who claps when you're not in the room? Who intercedes instead of interrupts? Who honors your growth? Not just your gains. By their fruits you will recognize them. Matthew Shpa, Asarim. Imagine being handed a gold chalice, beautiful, radiant, glowing in the light. But you take one sip, and it's poison. That's what flattery feels like from a hidden enemy. It sparkles, but it's spoiled. It cheers, but it chills. Discernment is your next level. You're not being blessed just with followers. You're being tested with filters. Not everyone deserves to walk with you into this new season. Not everyone can hold sacred space with you. Your soul is rare, and that rarity demands guardians, not groupies. Do not give dogs what is holy. Do not throw your pearls before swine. Matthew Sheba, Shesh. So, walk into that forest. Chosen one. Listen past the bird song. Feel beyond the breeze. You'll sense the eyes still, quiet, unblinking, and you'll know these are not supporters. These are scouts. They don't celebrate your essence. They calculate your pattern. And what's next for you? It's not for the jealous. It's not for the opportunists. It's for the protectors, the ones who pray when you're not looking, the ones who guard your fire, not feed off your flame. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4:23. Your future doesn't need an audience. It needs an army, and your discernment will be the sword that separates who walks with you from who watches you. Number 6. It wasn't a delay. It was divine setup to make sure you'd never fold again. Chosen one. They said you were delayed. They called you unlucky. They whispered behind your back. Maybe it just wasn't meant to be. But now, do you see what they couldn't? What looked like delay was actually divine delay on purpose, with precision, for your protection. Let's not sugarcoat it. You weren't being denied. You were being developed. You were being upgraded in secret. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus pais presece. Pais presece. Why did it take so long? Why the closed doors? The unanswered prayers? The people walking out at the worst possible times? Because the old you couldn't handle the magnitude of what's now being handed to you. Let me ask you, would you have carried today's blessings with the strength you had 3 years ago? Would you have guarded your peace if you still needed everyone's approval? Would you have handled influence without losing yourself in validation? Here's the truth. You weren't being held back. You were being fortified. Tyler Perry lived in his car before he built a billion-dollar empire. Sarah Jakes Roberts fell publicly before rising as one of the world's most transformative voices. Howard Schultz of Starbucks was rejected 242 times before anyone said yes. Les Brown was labeled educably mentally retarded before becoming a world-renowned speaker. And even David, the future king of Israel, was tending sheep while his anointing was waiting. Humble yourselves under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Echat Peter Chamesh. Shesh. You were cracked, not crushed. God was sealing those fractures in silence. You were emptied not to be discarded, but to be filled with power that doesn't leak. Heaven didn't want you to fumble the promise, so it waited. It refined. It tested. And now you no longer beg for affirmation. You're anchored in identity. You're not performing. You're embodying. You don't chase doors. Doors now swing open at your frequency when the time is right. I, the Lord, will make it happen. Isaiah 62. Think of trying to carry gold in a cracked clay pot. Every step leaks. Every movement weakens. That was you back then, cracked by betrayal, warped by insecurity, wounded by disappointment. But now, your vessel has been sealed in fire. You're no longer fragile. You're forged. And here's what they won't say out loud. Most people never rise not because they're not gifted, but because they got what they prayed for too soon. Premature promotion leads to spiritual collapse. But you were withheld, not rejected. The refining pot is for silver and the furnace for gold. But the Lord tests the hearts. Proverbs 17:3. You cried, "Why not me?" And heaven whispered, "Not yet." Not because you were forgotten, but because you were too valuable to be rushed. Now, every tear has meaning. Every night of silence has power. Every delay makes perfect sense. You weren't losing time. You were becoming timeless. This was never about speed. It was always about stability. Those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Isaiah 40:31. And now that it's your time, you won't just touch greatness, you'll carry it. Sustain it. Build legacy with it. And never drop it again. So, when they ask you how you held on so long, tell them, I wasn't waiting, I was transforming. Number 7. They can't manipulate what you no longer need validation from. Chosen one. Do you feel it? That undeniable strength rising from the deepest part of your soul, the part that finally stopped asking for permission to exist. You're no longer bending for applause. You're no longer performing to be liked. And you're certainly no longer shrinking to fit into the pockets of people who never even carried the capacity to see you. Let me ask you, how many times did you silence your truth just to keep the peace? How many rooms did you enter like a question mark instead of the exclamation you were born to be? But those days are over now, because you've tapped into the rarest kind of power, peace that doesn't need performance. For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? If I was still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. Galatians 1:10. Now, you wear your worth like a second skin, not loud, not boastful, just undeniable. They can see it in your silence. They feel it in your presence. And here's the truth. It makes people uncomfortable, not because you're arrogant, but because you're unshakable. You used to negotiate your value like it was a clearance sale, offering emotional discounts just to be accepted. But no more. Now, you know that your presence is the premium. You don't explain your glow, you embody it. Prince never begged for recognition. He embodied frequency. Rosa Parks didn't raise her voice, she held her ground. Alan Rickman, who played the iconic Severus Snape, once said, "Actors are agents of change." He let silence do more work than speech ever could. Lupita Nyong'o carries herself with quiet, firm dignity, and the world watches. And LeBron James doesn't argue his greatness. He shows up and lets legacy speak. The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me? Psalm 118:6. Imagine standing in a crowded marketplace. Everyone's shouting their worth, begging to be chosen, and there you are still, quiet, composed. You don't shout. You don't hustle for attention. You simply wait, because real value doesn't chase recognition, it attracts revelation. Now, everything's different, not because the world changed, but because your boundaries did. You stopped letting people speak to you like you're average. You stopped letting chaos define chemistry. You stopped making excuses for toxic connections just to avoid feeling alone. Now, you walk in such truth that even silence becomes loud with power. I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken. Psalm 6, 10. They feel it now, those who once had access to the most broken version of you, the version that asked for love from empty vessels, the version that accepted crumbs as proof of belonging. That version is gone. Let me ask, do you realize how powerful it is to no longer need validation? How untouchable you've become since you stopped requiring outside affirmation to confirm your identity? That's the part they can't stand. Because manipulation requires a weak point, and you've sealed the cracks. So we may boldly say, "The Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me?" Hebrews 13:6. They can't guilt you anymore, can't flatter you into obedience, can't shame you back into silence. And that makes you dangerous to every system that once relied on your submission. You are now the standard, not the seeker, the pillar, not the pawn. Michelle Obama didn't climb by asking for space. She built tables. Kendrick Lamar doesn't scream to prove himself. His craft reverberates truth. Eckhart Tolle wrote entire books whispering silence into the souls of millions. And you, yes, you have joined this frequency of those who do not beg to be heard, because they already are. The fear of man lays a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is safe. Proverbs 29:25. Now, they either respect you or retreat from you, because they can't reach the version of you that no longer exists. And the truth is, the loudest person in the room isn't always the most powerful. Sometimes, it's the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't chase, and doesn't apologize for standing whole. And that's you now. Chosen one. You are the loudest silence they've ever encountered. You are unshakable. Number 8. You took off the mask. Now the world has to face the real you, and they're shook. Chosen one. Do you remember that exact moment, the one where you took the deepest breath of your life and said, "Enough. No more pretending"? That was the moment everything changed. Not just around you, but within you. Because, let's be honest, you didn't just take off a mask. You removed a whole system of survival, a performance born out of trauma, a costume stitched with threads of approval, guilt, fear, and compromise. And now, you've dropped it. And the raw, radiant, untamed version of you is finally walking the earth, and it's shaking everything. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices. Colossians 3:9. Let me ask, how many years did you hide your fire just so others wouldn't feel cold? How many times did you dim your wisdom so others wouldn't feel exposed? And now that you shine without apology, people don't know what to do with you, because you're not palatable anymore. You're powerful. You're not shrinking to fit. You're expanding beyond the frame, and it's bending the rules of reality. Think of Jim Carrey, who dropped the comedy mask and started speaking on the spiritual nature of existence. Think of Britney Spears, whose unmasking exposed not only her own pain, but the industry's complicity. Shia LaBeouf, controversial yet revealing, walked through the fire of public meltdown and emerged talking about redemption. Naomi Osaka said no to media obligations to say yes to her peace. And even Jesus Christ, once unmasked before Pilate, declared, "My kingdom is not of this world." The Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. Romans 8:16. You're not performing anymore. You're resonating. What people feel when they're around you isn't charisma, it's convergence. The meeting of truth, healing, and timing. And it's electric. Your authenticity is so rare, so potent, that people are either drawn to you or triggered by the version of themselves you reflect. Because being in your presence is like standing in front of a mirror that reveals who they could be if they drop the lies. And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. Let me ask, have you noticed how people either rise beside you or quietly disappear? That's not rejection. That's realignment. Not everyone can withstand the gravity of your truth, but those who can, they stay, they grow, they protect. You're no longer bending reality to fit in. Reality is bending around your presence. You are a frequency shift. You're not just changing how people see you, you're changing how they see themselves. For God gave us a spirit not of fear but of power and love and self-control. 2 Timothy 1:7. And now, you've become the spark that ignites revolutions in hearts, in rooms, in systems. That's why the earth trembles when you speak, even if your voice is calm, because it's not loudness that creates change. It's authenticity. Jane Elliott unmasked racism with her blue eyes versus brown eyes experiment and forced a nation to see itself. Michael Jackson, through sheer performance, unmasked societal pain and healing. Greta Thunberg shook governments by simply speaking truth to power with no fluff. Brené Brown made vulnerability go viral, and you, just being real, is causing tectonic shifts. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. 2 Corinthians 5:17. This isn't a phase. This is a reveal. This is what happens when the mask drops and the mission begins. And chosen one, you are that mission now. Number 7. They can't manipulate what you no longer need validation from. Chosen one. Do you feel it? That undeniable strength rising from the deepest part of your soul, the part that finally stopped asking for permission to exist. You're no longer bending for applause. You're no longer performing to be liked. And you're certainly no longer shrinking to fit into the pockets of people who never even carried the capacity to see you. Let me ask you, how many times did you silence your truth just to keep the peace? How many rooms did you enter like a question mark instead of the exclamation you were born to be? But those days are over now, because you've tapped into the rarest kind of power, peace that doesn't need performance. For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? If I was still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. Galatians 1:10. Now, you wear your worth like a second skin, not loud, not boastful, just undeniable. They can see it in your silence. They feel it in your presence. And here's the truth. It makes people uncomfortable not because you're arrogant, but because you're unshakable. You used to negotiate your value like it was a clearance sale, offering emotional discounts just to be accepted. But no more. Now, you know that your presence is the premium. You don't explain your glow, you embody it. Prince never begged for recognition. He embodied frequency. Rosa Parks didn't raise her voice. She held her ground. Alan Rickman, who played the iconic Severus Snape, once said, "Actors are agents of change." He let silence do more work than speech ever could. Lupita Nyong'o carries herself with quiet, firm dignity, and the world watches. And LeBron James doesn't argue his greatness. He shows up and lets legacy speak. The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me? Psalm 118:6. Imagine standing in a crowded marketplace. Everyone's shouting their worth, begging to be chosen. And there you are still, quiet, composed. You don't shout. You don't hustle for attention. You simply wait, because real value doesn't chase recognition. It attracts revelation. Now, everything's different, not because the world changed, but because your boundaries did. You stopped letting people speak to you like you're average. You stopped letting chaos define chemistry. You stopped making excuses for toxic connections just to avoid feeling alone. Now, you walk in such truth that even silence becomes loud with power. I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken. Psalm 6:8. They feel it now, those who once had access to the most broken version of you, the version that asked for love from empty vessels, the version that accepted crumbs as proof of belonging. That version is gone. Let me ask, do you realize how powerful it is to no longer need validation? How untouchable you've become since you stopped requiring outside affirmation to confirm your identity. That's the part they can't stand. Because manipulation requires a weak point, and you've sealed the cracks. So we may boldly say, "The Lord is my helper, I will not fear. What can man do to me?" Hebrews 13:6. They can't guilt you anymore, can't flatter you into obedience, can't shame you back into silence, and that makes you dangerous to every system that once relied on your submission. You are now the standard, not the seeker, the pillar, not the pawn. Michelle Obama didn't climb by asking for space. She built tables. Kendrick Lamar doesn't scream to prove himself. His craft reverberates truth. Eckhart Tolle wrote entire books whispering silence into the souls of millions. And you, yes, you have joined this frequency of those who do not beg to be heard, because they already are. The fear of man lays a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is safe. Proverbs 29:25. Now, they either respect you or retreat from you, because they can't reach the version of you that no longer exists. And the truth is, the loudest person in the room isn't always the most powerful. Sometimes, it's the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't chase, and doesn't apologize for standing whole. And that's you, now. Chosen one, you are the loudest silence they've ever encountered. You are unshakable. Number 8. You took off the mask. Now the world has to face the real you, and they're shook. Chosen one. Do you remember that exact moment? The one where you took the deepest breath of your life and said, "Enough. No more pretending"? That was the moment everything changed. Not just around you, but within you. Because let's be honest, you didn't just take off a mask. You removed a whole system of survival. A performance born out of trauma, a costume stitched with threads of approval, guilt, fear, and compromise. And now, you've dropped it. And the raw, radiant, untamed version of you is finally walking the earth, and it's shaking everything. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices. Colossians 3:9. Let me ask, how many years did you hide your fire just so others wouldn't feel cold? How many times did you dim your wisdom so others wouldn't feel exposed? And now that you shine without apology, people don't know what to do with you. Because you're not palatable anymore. You're powerful. You're not shrinking to fit. You're expanding beyond the frame. And it's bending the rules of reality. Think of Jim Carrey, who dropped the comedy mask and started speaking on the spiritual nature of existence. Think of Britney Spears, whose unmasking exposed not only her own pain, but the industry's complicity. Shia LaBeouf, controversial, yet revealing, walked through the fire of public meltdown and emerged talking about redemption. Naomi Osaka said no to media obligations to say yes to her peace. And even Jesus Christ, once unmasked before Pilate, declared, "My kingdom is not of this world." Then the Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. Romans 8:16, you're not performing anymore. You're resonating. What people feel when they're around you isn't charisma, it's convergence. The meeting of truth, healing, and timing. And it's electric. Your authenticity is so rare, so potent, that people are either drawn to you or triggered by the version of themselves you reflect. Because being in your presence is like standing in front of a mirror that reveals who they could be if they drop the lies. And you will know the truth. And the truth will set you free. John 8:32. Let me ask, have you noticed how people either rise beside you or quietly disappear? That's not rejection. That's realignment. Not everyone can withstand the gravity of your truth. But those who can, they stay. They grow. They protect. You're no longer bending reality to fit in. Reality is bending around your presence. You are a frequency shift. You're not just changing how people see you. You're changing how they see themselves. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. 2 Timothy 1:7. And now, you've become the spark that ignites revolutions in hearts, in rooms, in systems. That's why the earth trembles when you speak, even if your voice is calm. Because it's not loudness that creates change. It's authenticity. Jane Elliott unmasked racism with her blue eyes versus brown eyes experiment and forced a nation to see itself. Michael Jackson, through sheer performance, unmasked societal pain and healing. Greta Thunberg shook governments by simply speaking truth to power with no fluff. Brené Brown made vulnerability go viral. And you just being real, is causing tectonic shifts. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. 2 Corinthians 5:17. This isn't a phase. This is a reveal. This is what happens when the mask drops and the mission begins. And chosen one, you are that mission now. Number 9. You were just trying to survive now. You're accidentally leading a generation. You didn't ask for this. Did you? Chosen one? You weren't looking to become a lighthouse. You weren't trying to be an icon, a leader, a healer. You weren't out here chasing legacy. You were just trying to breathe, trying to stop the bleeding, trying to break the chain that had kept generations before you in bondage. But survival has a strange power. It transforms you into something unforgettable. Let me ask you, how many times did you just want to be okay? Not successful, not famous, just okay. To stop the chaos in your mind, to silence the self-doubt, to escape the emotional warfare that played on loop in your soul. And yet, without realizing it, every scar you healed became someone else's permission slip. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 8:5. You never picked up a mic, but your silence screamed freedom. You didn't write a book, but your energy taught chapters. You didn't climb onto a stage, but every room you walk into feels different now because your presence has become a template for transformation. Chadwick Boseman didn't tell the world he was dying, but his strength gave life to millions. Rosa Parks didn't give a speech, she just didn't move. And history moved around her. Mr. Rogers transformed hearts through quiet, loving presence, not bravado. Anthony Bourdain, in his rawness and honesty, made people rethink life's meaning. Even Jesus didn't start with crowds. He started in silence, in deserts, in resistance. You're the same, a living, breathing shift in frequency, a soul that refused to die in the dark and lit the path without realizing others were watching. Now your authenticity is medicine. Your calm is contagious. Your healed identity, it's become a blueprint for breakthrough. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. Matthew 5:3-14. And the wild part? You didn't even try. You didn't set out to lead. You just stopped bleeding. You just chose not to pass down what was handed to you in pain. You just decided that healing was more important than revenge. And in that quiet decision, you sparked a revolution of rebirth. You've become the one they come to, not for advice, but for atmosphere. They just want to sit near your presence. Why? Because your vibration speaks what their spirit needs. Proof that healing is real. Let your light so shine before others, that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father. Matthew 5:6-10. Let me ask, have you noticed how the people around you dream bigger now? How they speak with more courage? How they take risks they used to avoid? That's not coincidence. That's spiritual gravity. You're pulling them forward, not with force, but with frequency. Maya Angelou once said, "People may forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel." You've embodied that truth. Your presence doesn't teach, it transforms. Not because of effort, but because of alignment. You're not pouring from emptiness. You're living in overflow. Out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. John 7:30-8. You're no longer surviving. You're serving without sacrificing. You're guiding without trying. You're leading from the inside out. And what's more powerful than that? You've entered a realm where impact is accidental and influence is effortless. You don't need a brand. You are the movement. Keanu Reeves, humble and grounded, inspires millions just by living with integrity. Yeshetu, once a monk, now speaks from lived experience, not rehearsed sound bites. Young Pueblo healed inwardly and now heals others through stillness and poetry. Marcus Aurelius, centuries ago, ruled Rome with philosophy, not power. And you, chosen one, you are doing this now, in real time. The one who is faithful with little will also be faithful with much. Luke 16:10. You didn't fake it. You didn't rush it. You just healed in silence. And now, you're leading a generation simply by existing in truth. You didn't ask for the crown, but heaven placed it anyway. And that, beloved, is legacy. Number 10. You didn't sell out, you showed up. And now the universe is paying in full. Chosen one. While they were chasing clout, you were cultivating character. While they sold themselves for attention, you stayed rooted in truth. You didn't sell your soul to be seen. You showed up in silence. You waited when everyone else took shortcuts. And now, the universe is cutting the check with interest. But this payment isn't just financial. It's soul deep. This isn't about success, it's about alignment. You're not just getting money, you're walking into meaning. This is spiritual prosperity, abundance with no guilt, wealth with no noise, elevation with no compromise. The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. Proverbs 10:22. They thought you were slow. They mocked your patience. But what they didn't see was that you were planting roots so deep, not even a storm could shake your harvest. Imagine a tree in silence. No one cheers for the roots. But when it finally blooms, everyone wants the fruit. That's you now. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter as a single mom on welfare. She stayed authentic. Now she's a literary billionaire. Steve Carell didn't rise until his 42nd, but his timing was impeccable. Shonda Rhimes didn't chase fast fame. She built a dynasty in her own voice. David Goggins went through hell to find his mental freedom and inspired millions. Even Noah built the ark with no forecast, but when the rain came, everyone remembered his obedience. And let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap, if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. You could have faked it, could have copied trends, could have become someone else for a paycheck, but instead you chose the long road. And now, every opportunity that finds you fits like it was made for your soul. Let me ask you, how many times did you doubt your path because you weren't moving fast enough? How many doors did you walk away from because they came with conditions your soul couldn't bear? And now that you're here, doesn't it feel surreal how natural it all feels? Because this is divine reward. This is heaven's compensation plan. Not for those who hustle mindlessly, but for those who remain authentic when it's hardest. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Psalm 37:4. Now every door that opens carries peace with it. Every yes feels like oxygen. Every connection edifies. And here's the most divine part. You want to show up. There's no burnout. Because you're no longer performing. You're just being. This is wealth. Not just in numbers, but in alignment, freedom, and ease. He who walks with integrity walks securely. Proverbs 10:9. They took the easy road, you took the real one. And now, while they're tired, faking, drained, you're restored, aligned, overflowing. You didn't sell out, you stayed rooted. And the universe? It kept every receipt. Ava DuVernay turned down deals that didn't honor her voice. Now she builds entire empires. Russell Brand reclaimed his soul through spiritual healing and lives fully aligned. Simone Biles withdrew to protect her peace and taught the world a new definition of winning. Denzel Washington once said, "Don't confuse movement with progress." And you, chosen one, you've made every step count. Honor the Lord with your wealth. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing. Proverbs 3:9. So now the reward isn't just money, it's magnetic destiny. It's doors that open because of who you are, not what you perform. It's blessings that stick because they match your frequency, and it's peace that follows every promotion. You didn't just survive, you stayed solid, and now, chosen one, the payoff has just begun. Number 11. They didn't vote you in, but now they can't stop watching you move. Chosen one. Isn't it something? They didn't nominate you. They didn't approve of you. They didn't validate you when you were hidden in the shadows. But now, they watch your every step as if your movement sets the rhythm of the room. They didn't crown you, but your walk carries more weight than titles. And your presence commands more attention than any loud voice screaming for influence ever could. Let me ask you, did you ever imagine this would happen? That your silence would carry more gravity than their speeches? That your stillness would ripple louder than their chaos? This isn't something you chased. You never asked for the spotlight. But life God put you in one. Why? Because you embodied the one thing this generation craves: authentic power. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and He will lift you up. James Erba, Asser. You didn't grab a mic and demand attention. You didn't beg for influence. You just healed, grew, aligned, and suddenly, people started listening with their spirit. That's the kind of leadership that can't be taught. It's embodied. Nelson Mandela didn't rise through popularity contests. He rose through principle, endurance, and unwavering truth. Mother Teresa never sought fame, yet the world followed her compassion. Bob Marley turned pain into peace and truth into global lyrics. Greta Thunberg never asked for a stage, but her honesty made one appear. And Jesus Christ himself, rejected by the religious elite, yet still the most followed leader in history. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalma Vishmuna Sara Asirim Vishtaim. That's you now. The rejected one, the overlooked one, the underestimated one. And yet the world now bends in your direction. You've become the standard they measure themselves against. The mirror they can't unsee, not because you're loud, but because your life is too rooted to ignore. You walk through storms with quiet certainty, and they don't know how you're still standing. You speak truth without flinching, and it exposes the lies in their own voices. You hold your ground when everyone else folds, and your consistency makes them question their own reflection. Let your light shine before others, so they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Matthew 5:16. But let's be honest, with influence comes pressure. When people can't control you, they start watching you. When they can't define you, they start imitating you. Envy shows up wearing the mask of curiosity. Jealousy pretends to be concern. There are whispers behind your back, not because you've done something wrong, but because you've done something they didn't think was possible without their permission. Chosen one. You've become the leader no one saw coming because you lead by presence, not performance. Your influence isn't hyped, it's felt. When you enter the room, it's not your outfit, your resume, or your voice that changes things. It's your energy, your stillness, your soul. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 40:10. You've outgrown the need for applause. You're not leading to be seen. You're leading because your integrity demanded it. You've already passed the tests. You've already walked through the fire. And now the flame no longer burns you, it fuels you. Barack Obama faced relentless criticism, but never reacted with bitterness, only strength. Malala Yousafzai faced bullets and kept speaking. Leonardo da Vinci influenced science, art, and technology for centuries without ever demanding credit. Fred Rogers changed lives with a whisper, not a roar. You, chosen one, are doing the same, quietly, boldly, eternally. A gentle tongue is a tree of life. Proverbs 15:4. So let them watch, let them whisper, let them try to figure you out. Because while they chase followers, you're carrying generations forward. And you're doing it without a crown, because you are the authority. You never needed their vote. You've been appointed by heaven. Number 12. You're not lucky, you're in alignment. And destiny is finally catching up. Chosen one. Listen closely. This isn't luck. This isn't coincidence. This is alignment, catching up to your obedience. What you're walking into now isn't random blessing, it's calculated fulfillment. The heavens have been tracking your tears, recording your choices, and orchestrating a return that matches your resilience. You didn't stumble into this. You were sculpted into it. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. This is not your peak. This is your launch pad. Everything. You outlasted every betrayal, every silent season. Every heartbreak has fused together into a force the world cannot ignore. You're not becoming, you've become. Let me ask, how many times did you wonder, when will it all make sense? Well, look around. The opportunities feel surreal, but they fit. The rooms feel elevated, but you're qualified. The success feels big, but not overwhelming. Why? Because this was custom built for your soul. Oprah Winfrey was fired before she became a household name. Now she says, luck is preparation meeting opportunity. Samuel L. Jackson didn't land his breakout role until his 42nd. Farah Wang didn't design her first dress until 40. Colonel Sanders built KFC after 60. Even Abraham and Sarah birthed their promise when logic said it was too late. At the time I appoint, I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son. Genesis 18:14. So no, you're not late. You're right on divine schedule. Everything that once broke you is now building platforms beneath your feet. Everything that drained you is now fuel. Every delay was actually disguised God hiding you while He aligned the stage. Let me ask again, do you feel it? That clarity in your soul, that divine wind beneath your actions, that ease in your purpose? That's what it feels like to walk inside your assignment. He makes all things beautiful in its time. Ecclesiastes 3:11. And now, you're no longer asking for signs. You are the sign. You're not guessing, you're gliding. You don't chase, you command. Not because of ego, but because of alignment. And here's what makes it even more powerful. This isn't just about you. Every room you enter now, you shift atmospheres. Every win you receive, you multiply. Every step forward, you're pulling generations with you. Beyoncé doesn't just entertain, she empowers. Tyler Perry doesn't just produce, he gives platforms. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't just speak, he carried a movement. Harriet Tubman didn't just escape, she freed others. You, chosen one, are doing the same. Quietly, consistently, eternally. The righteous will flourish like a palm tree planted in the house of the Lord. Psalm 92, Shtima Sarah, Shelosha Sarah. This isn't just success. This is spiritual succession. You've entered a frequency that doesn't just bless you, it builds others. Your alignment isn't just about prosperity, it's about impact that multiplies itself through obedience. And here's the truth. This frequency doesn't fade. It grows. It expands. It evolves with you. Because you're no longer walking toward destiny. You're walking in it. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. Proverbs 16:3. So prepare, not for chaos, but for convergence. Not for noise, but for recognition in the spirit realm. Not for applause, but for legacy. Because destiny isn't knocking anymore. It's wide open, and it's been waiting for you to walk through fully, boldly, unapologetically you. Number 13. You didn't just evolve, you triggered a chain reaction they can't unsee. Chosen one. They thought you were just on a personal journey, that you were merely trying to fix your past, clean up your mess, stabilize your emotions. But God knew better. Heaven knew you weren't just evolving, you were activating a spiritual chain reaction that no one could reverse once it started. You didn't just grow, you ignited something in others that now refuses to sleep again. Can I ask you something? Do you realize how many souls heard their own silent cry for freedom when they watched you rise without bitterness? when they saw you walk through fire and emerge intact, not with arrogance, but with spiritual clarity. That wasn't coincidence. That was your frequency, awakening frequencies. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon you. Isaiah 61. You see, your healing wasn't quiet, even when you were silent. Your spirit was screaming a message into the spirit realm. It's possible. Possible to break the cycle. Possible to come out whole. Possible to lose everything and still be enough. And that message was received by people you don't even know. Some of them won't admit it. Others will never say thank you. But you've shifted them permanently. Rosa Parks didn't give a speech. She sat down in truth and stood the world up. Nina Simone said, "It's an artist's duty to reflect the times." Her songs opened hearts long shut. Eckhart Tolle didn't shout his wisdom, he radiated peace. And the world leaned in. James Baldwin didn't need a stadium to move history. His truth was enough. And Jesus, the ultimate example, lived truth so boldly it activated history itself. You're walking in that same frequency now. You didn't shout it. You didn't market it. You became it. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5, Il-Basra. This wasn't just your healing. It was the universe's announcement that someone had broken out of the illusion, that someone had escaped the programming, that someone had refused to die numb. You're not just a person anymore. You're a living transmission, a signal to others that it's okay to wake up. Have you noticed how people pause around you? How even strangers seem moved by your presence? That's not coincidence. That's because your energy says something your mouth never has to. Your scars have become scripture for those silently suffering. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has sent me to bind up the broken-hearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives. Isaiah 61. And here's what's wild. Your evolution didn't come in a highlight reel. It came through gut-wrenching rebirth, through sleepless nights where your prayers had no words, through loss that cut you to your core, through silence that felt eternal. But God was rewiring you for impact. Every pain was a download. Every delay was a layer of spiritual armor. So now when you speak, rooms shift. When you sit, people feel safer. When you cry, it teaches. You don't need a title. Your presence is the appointment. Jay Shetty became a global voice, not by chasing platforms, but by healing in solitude. Bethany Hamilton, the surfer who lost her arm to a shark, became an icon of resilience. Simone Biles redefined strength by saying, "No." Bo Burnham cracked open vulnerability in art. And you, chosen one, are now the one making others believe. Healing is not only possible, it's powerful. For such a time as this. Esther 4:14. You are not a trend. You are not a phase. You are the reason someone else gets up today. You are the spark that ignites dormant fire. You are the reminder in a world drowning in forgetfulness. And now that you've activated this frequency, chosen one, the world around you will never remain asleep again. Number 14. You stopped hiding your scars now. Your flaws are doing what perfection never could. Chosen one. Take a breath. Let it sink in. You no longer have to pretend. You no longer have to armor up with fake smiles or spiritual cliches. You stopped hiding. You stopped airbrushing your soul. And now, your flaws are doing what your perfection never could, changing lives. People don't trust perfection. They admire it. Maybe. But they don't follow it. It's too distant. Too sterile. What they trust is someone who's been to the depths and still chose to rise. Let me ask, how many times did you try to be flawless just to feel worthy? How many masks did you put on just to avoid the sting of judgment? But when you stopped editing your authenticity and started showing up as yourself, raw, cracked, but whole in spirit, everything shifted. But he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians 12-9. Now your honesty heals. Your vulnerability strengthens. Your story speaks more than any sermon. Not because you're pretending to be a guide, but because you've been through hell and back and have nothing left to prove. Brené Brown built a global movement not from strength, but from naming her shame. Tupac Shakur wrote poetry that bled truth. Anthony Bourdain made us feel something real. Viola Davis shared her trauma and gave us all permission to own ours. And Jesus, hanging, bruised and bleeding, was still the greatest symbol of power this world has ever seen. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm Sheloshim Ve'arba Shmona Asra. You used to think your pain disqualified you. Now you know it's the very thing that made you qualified, because people don't need idols. They need permission to be real. They need someone who doesn't flinch when they say, "I'm not okay." And you've become that sanctuary, not a perfect guide, but a present one. Imagine walking into a room full of filters, and there you are. No mask, no pretending, just unfiltered light. And suddenly, the air changes, because someone finally said, "I'm not perfect, but I'm powerful anyway." Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Psalma v'shebashtaim. Your story doesn't need to be polished to be powerful. Your truth doesn't need a bow to be a blessing. And your scars? They're not liabilities. They're lit torches for those still walking in the dark. Lady Gaga said she used to think her pain was her weakness until she used it to create purpose. Demi Lovato chose to speak her brokenness out loud, and millions felt seen. Steve Harvey lived in his car before becoming a global voice. Beth Moore preached raw truth to a generation tired of fake doctrine. And you, chosen one, you're doing what they never expected, leading through imperfection. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Salma arba'im v'sheva shlosh. So protect your peace, not your image. Guard your soul, not your brand. Let your scars breathe. Let your flaws speak. Because there's a power in you now that can't be duplicated. You've stepped into the most magnetic version of yourself. Not because you're perfect, but because you showed up anyway. And the world, it's following you not because you have it all together, but because you're brave enough to admit when you don't. So when people stare in awe, wondering how you figured it out, this is part of the answer. You stopped pretending to be someone you never were. You stopped performing for acceptance, hiding for peace, and editing your soul to fit their standards. You stopped waiting for someone to hand you permission to be whole. Instead, you reclaimed yourself, and that moment when you chose truth over image, healing over pretending, and authenticity over approval, everything began to shift, not just for you, but for everyone watching. Because when a chosen one stops apologizing for who they are, the ripple effect is unstoppable. You didn't need a stage. You didn't need the loudest voice in the room. You didn't need to be flawless to make an impact. All you needed was the courage to be real, the kind of real that lives without filters, the kind of real that doesn't fear vulnerability, the kind of real that says, "I've been through it, but I'm still here, and now." Your presence speaks louder than your past. Your authenticity whispers healing into rooms that never heard your voice. You've become the answer to questions people didn't know how to ask. The solution that couldn't be manufactured. The example that couldn't be copied. This wasn't about perfection. It never was. It was about stripping away every mask they told you was necessary just to be loved. It was about shedding the pressure to entertain, the fear of rejection, and the idea that you had to climb some imaginary ladder to be enough. You realized the only ladder worth climbing was the one within, and you climbed it rung by painful rung until you touched the truth of your identity. That identity isn't fragile. It's forged. It doesn't tremble anymore when misunderstood. It doesn't break when overlooked. It stands. It glows. It leads. That's the truth people feel when they encounter you now. You're not chasing worth. You embody it. You're not negotiating your value. You anchor it. And the beauty of it all is that you're not trying to lead anyone. You're just walking in alignment. And the world can't help but follow. That's what makes you so powerful. You don't have to prove your transformation. You live it. Your healing speaks in rooms where your voice hasn't even entered yet. Your energy walks ahead of you and tells the atmosphere, this one is real. And that realness, it's what's magnetizing everything to you now. Favor, peace, opportunities, connections, clarity. You didn't earn it through performance. You unlocked it through presence. To each and every one of you who's been on this journey, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for receiving. Thank you for simply being here. Whether you've watched every part of this series, or this is the first message you've heard, your spirit is part of something much bigger than just content. You've entered a space where truth echoes, where healing is activated, and where your journey is honored, not judged. Your time, your energy, your openness, none of it goes unnoticed. This isn't just about what I speak. It's about what your soul hears. And I'm grateful for the chance to meet you at this intersection of spirit and truth. If you feel led to support this work, to help keep messages like this alive, impactful, and reaching more chosen ones across the world, you can do so through super thanks. But whether you give or not, let me be clear, your value is not based on a donation. Your presence alone is sacred. I am already deeply thankful for your support in every form, whether it's a kind comment, a shared video, or just your silent agreement with the words being spoken. It all matters. It all builds this space, and it all carries weight. This isn't the end, it's a beginning, a deeper beginning. As you walk forward from this message, may you carry something with you that no one can take. The unshakable knowing that you didn't need to become anything other than who you truly are. That knowing will continue to draw the right people, unlock the right doors, and awaken the right timing. You are not late. You are not behind. You are perfectly aligned. And what's coming next isn't just about being seen, it's about being remembered for what you helped others feel when they couldn't feel anything at all. I bless your steps, your spirit, and your silence. May peace anchor your movements. May truth protect your heart. May clarity follow you everywhere. May every seed you planted in secret now bloom in public with no shame and no striving. And may the world finally witness what heaven has always known, that your presence is a prophecy, your breath is divine, and your walk is the thunder no one saw coming. Keep walking, chosen one. This is your era, not to prove anything, but to finally live as everything God designed you to be.